John Berman, thanks so much for joining us. A lot going on this morning. A speech that was abnormal in its normalcy, out of the box because it was so in the box, shocking in its unshockingness. A speech that was so untypically un-Trumpian that maybe we should have expected it all along. Instead of the dark themes we heard in his inaugural address, the president instead spoke of unity, prosperity, and a new chapter in American greatness.
What we are witnessing today is the renewal of the American spirit. Think of the marvels we can achieve if we simply set free the dreams of our people. The time for small thinking is over. The time for trivial fights is behind us. I am asking all members of Congress to join me in dreaming big and bold and daring things for our country.
Many of the people who watched it last night liked it. In our CNN ORC poll, 57% said they had a very positive reaction to the president's address. 69% said they thought the president's policies would indeed move this country in the right direction. It was a Republican-leaning audience, but still, those are pretty solid numbers. So good, the White House is planning to hold back a little bit the announcement of their revised travel ban. Let the executive branch have this moment. The administration not wanting to step on its own solid review. Still, though, this was an address that was pretty lacking in details, in substance, and frankly, that's where the rubber meets the road. So let's begin this morning with Joe Johns at the White House. Good morning.
Good morning, Poppy. The president got very high marks for tone. He got high marks for rhetoric and even threw in a little bit of policy guidance for congressional Republicans on repealing and replacing Obamacare, for example. He did tip his hat to congressional Republicans on the issue of tax credits to help pay for insurance, as well as expanding health savings accounts. But for the most part, he didn't give Republicans a whole lot of idea of how to get there, keeping it, as you said, mostly big picture. Listen.
Action is not a choice, it is a necessity. So I am calling on all Democrats and Republicans in Congress to work with us to save Americans from this imploding Obamacare disaster, with reforms that expand choice, increase access, lower costs, and at the same time provide better health care. The way to make health insurance available to everyone is to lower the cost of health insurance, and that is what we are going to do.
But what will likely be remembered as one of the emotional high points, perhaps the emotional high point of the speech, was when the president paid tribute to the widow of Navy SEAL William Ryan Owens, who was the first U.S. service member killed under the Trump administration. Listen.
Ryan died as he lived, a warrior and a hero, battling against terrorism and securing our nation. Ryan's legacy is etched into eternity. Thank you. Thank you.
This morning here at the White House, of course, attention is now turning to the very tough job of working the president's agenda through Capitol Hill. That means dealing with all the specifics. There is scheduled here at the White House today a legislative strategy session, also the president having lunch with the leaders of the House and the Senate.
Yeah, and those numbers do matter, and the president didn't offer many of the numbers or many of the specifics. Maybe he will today in that lunch. Joe Johns at the White House, thanks so much. One note we want to make here. The White House made the vice president available to every television network except CNN. We did extend an invitation. The White House did not respond. We do want to bring in Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics, Rebecca Berg, CNN political analyst, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and Jackie Kucinich, CNN political analyst and Washington bureau chief for the Daily Beast. Professor, first to you. Yesterday, Donald Trump said he gave himself a C+ in terms of communicating his overall message to the American people so far. Last night's speech has received largely positive reviews. You think he was better than a C+?
He was better than a C+ last night. You know, for another president, we would have called that a tough speech. For Donald Trump, it was gauzy. It exceeded expectations because it wasn't nearly as dark as the inaugural address and some other speeches and presentations he's given, and it lacked the bite of all of those nasty tweets. So I think that's progress. As you noted, didn't include much detail, didn't include guidance for Congress. I don't think it accomplished much on the bipartisan front, though that's also a result of Democrats not responding there in the hall. So, yes, it's better, but let's remember, a speech is just a speech. I mean, this is a State of the Union speech for all practical purposes, and they generally get positive reviews, mainly, as you noted, because the audience is heavily tilted to the party of the president delivering the address. That is not a random sample of the American public.
So, Rebecca Berg, to you, whether or not this was his pivot, a word that I am very worried about using. Who knows? We used it all through the campaign. We won't know until we see how this all plays out. Was it just a speech or was it more? But I will say that there was, in the specifics he did give, there was quite a departure from conservative orthodoxy. He said he wants to spend a ton of money. He talked about $1 trillion infrastructure plan. He doubled down in an Obamacare plan and tax credits that have divided his own party. So that is actually some substance that we got that divides his party arguably more than it unites it.
We did, absolutely. This is, you know, what's so interesting about this, Poppy, is that in spite of this, you're seeing Republicans kind of across the board responding positively to this speech, taking this sort of pep rally takeaway from it. But you're absolutely right. Donald Trump did not espouse these sort of traditional conservative policies and traditional conservative values. But for any of us who have been paying attention throughout the course of his campaign, throughout the course of his young presidency, that shouldn't surprise anyone, because Donald Trump has never been a conservative. He's never really been ideological to begin with. And so for him to take sort of a middle-of-the-road Republican policy approach in this speech, I think was interesting, but not entirely surprising. On the other hand, the tax credit issue in particular, Donald Trump deciding to use this speech to take a position on tax credits in the health care proposal that is coming out of Congress, that is very consequential in this health care fight that's unfolding. We've seen Republicans on the conservative side of the spectrum on Capitol Hill sort of drawing a line in the sand this week, saying that they could not support a proposal that comprises tax credits, and now we're hearing directly from the president that that's going to be the plan that he is supporting, and so that's very important.
At least he supports it right now. He seems to have moved every day on that, so we'll have to keep watching that. Jackie, there's a phrase called, you know, damning someone with faint praise. I'm not sure the reverse of that. It might be, you know, damning someone or praising someone with faint damning, which is what the Speaker, you know, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi may have done in her statement about the speech. She said the president's speech was utterly disconnected from the cruel reality of his conduct. When I read that as an admission that, you know what, the speech may have been effective, but I don't want you to pay attention to that. Pay attention to everything else he's done up until this point.
Well, to Larry's point, that's why this is just a speech right now. And for Donald Trump, it was a very good speech. That said, there's already so much scar tissue built up between Democrats and Donald Trump, between what he said. I mean, just a couple of days ago, he was saying nasty things about Nancy Pelosi, where he might need her down the line for this infrastructure project. Heck, he might even need, Democrats probably aren't going to buy it, but he might need them for this health care proposal that, that some Republicans are saying we can't vote for. So while this was a good speech, legislating is something completely different. You have to reach out to the other side on some of these issues that particularly very fiscally or very conservative Republicans are going to say absolutely not. I don't care if you're a good negotiator, I'm not going there. So we'll see if he learns that lesson going forward and stops really hitting back at his critics, because that's going to be his undoing if he continues to do that.
But they are going to like his critics. Many of them are going to like this $1 trillion infrastructure plan. We're going to dig into later how that would be paid for later in the show. But Larry, to you, this is a moment. I mean, we've seen the Twitter pictures in the White House when he came back and he was greeted by all his staff there applauding him. The administration is basking in this moment, no question. How do they make the moment last? Because if you look at Trump's Twitter feed, the president has not tweeted anything controversial in the past 3 days. So couple that with his speech last night. Is this a new page?
Poppy, anybody who's followed Donald Trump knows that this may be a new page, and the page will be turned within 48 to 72 hours. How do they make it last? Somebody needs to seize that electronic device from which he tweets. But of course that isn't going to happen, and he'll be back on Twitter, and he'll be attacking the enemy of the American public, you know, the press, and attacking various and sundry other figures within a short period of time. Also, what's really important about the speech is what wasn't in it. The details of legislation, the real guidance for the House of Representatives and the Senate as to how they're going to resolve all the fissures in their own caucuses, because they certainly aren't going to get many Democratic votes for the vast majority of his proposals.
You know, where exactly is he on a tax plan? We did not get that exactly. You know, Rebecca, Poppy was talking about the fact that the staff was applauding the president when he came back. I actually read that as not praise, but more of a please. Please keep on doing this. You know, don't forget, they're trying to send messages to him as well. They want him to, you know, keep on track with this.
Right, and so it makes perfect sense that they would be giving him positive reinforcement after this speech. And certainly Donald Trump, I mean, he understands politics. He clearly won this campaign against all odds. And so he will see the reaction to this speech and I think take away that this was a good direction for him to be moving in. But I mean, Donald Trump is still Donald Trump. He's still unpredictable. He still is, to an extent, unfiltered, as Larry suggested. And so his staff, in spite of all of their best intentions, are really working against the odds to rein Donald Trump in the long term. But we'll see. I mean, Donald Trump might see the reaction to this speech and realize, you know, maybe this is how you're supposed to act when you're president. Maybe this is the tone I should be taking moving forward. We'll have to wait and see. But I think the challenge most immediately for his staff and for the staff and lawmakers on Capitol Hill is to really make something out of this, make something out of the wish list that Donald Trump gave us all last night, and actually get some policy made. And that is very challenging. It's an all-hands-on-deck sort of situation, and it's going to be a really big test of his administration's firepower at this point.
I'd be remiss not to mention the moment that everyone was talking about as it was happening, and then this morning, and that is when he honored Navy SEAL William Ryan Owens and his widow, Corinne, more than 2-minute standing ovation to her. Van Jones, you know, CNN contributor, one of the harshest critics of this president, said that is the moment when he became president. Jackie, how did you see that moment?
It truly, I mean, the moment it happened, you knew that that was going to be what we'd be talking about this morning. And it was in a speech that really was, while the tone was different, it was very partisan. There was a lot of partisan divides. This was something you saw almost everyone in the gallery stand up and applaud because her sacrifice is, you know, transcends party, creed, everything tonight.
It's the type of thing the president should do. It's the type of thing that the country should do, honoring those who are lost in service of the nation, and our hearts go out to that family, to be sure.
All right, guys, thank you very much, Larry, Rebecca, Jackie. Certainly a lot to get through this morning. We have a lot ahead. The president might have pushed to unify the country last night, but the reaction from Democrats in the audience, a different story. We will talk to Democratic Senator Edward Markey straight ahead. Also, a major shift on immigration. Well, the president signaling he could give millions of undocumented immigrants legal status. He's really shifting here.
And then the president said that 94 million people are out of the labor force. That, my friends, is actually an absurd number. We'll explain.